Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. This is my channel's weekly compendium. Enjoy. Case file number 1688, written by Self-Help Kelp. Vanished in sight through a flickering night. Last summer, two of my friends and I, 30s, female, were carpooling to the airport in the early hours of the morning to catch our flight. It was around 3 or 4 a.m. I was in the passenger seat, my friend was driving, and we had just picked up the third friend. We all live in the suburbs near Detroit. My friend, who was picked up last, lives only 5 or 10 minutes from the Detroit airport. We're driving down a well-lit 2-lane road. The area is well populated, and you often do see pedestrians out and about at any given hour. Anyway, as we were driving, we stopped at a red light at an intersection. Directly ahead, we see a man, looked to be in his 30s or 40s, riding a modern-day red bicycle near the edge of the road, heading in our direction. He was wearing a beanie hat, a flannel, and shorts. I don't recall his shoes, but I do remember he had a backpack on. He had longer hair that poked out from the bottom of his hat, and some facial hair from what I can recall. My friend who was driving said, "He'd better hurry, it's starting to sprinkle," which prompted me to look up from my phone and look at the man again as he was getting closer. All three of us were looking at this guy, and he was getting closer by the second. He was almost to the crosswalk directly in front of us, right under a streetlight where he started to freaking turn transparent and flicker like an old film movie on a projector. You know how sepia photos or filters look? Like warmer, muted, vintage-looking brown tones? I watched him and his bright-as-hell red bike turn from vibrant color to sepia in a millisecond, then instantly vanish into thin air. I instantly shot my head to the left to lock eyes with my friend. Both of us were in shock. Our eyes were wide and our mouths were open in utter disbelief. Our friend in the back seat was the first to process what had just happened and said, where the hell did he go? Did you guys see that? He turned see-through. Seriously, where did he go? What the hell? We all kinda let out some shrieks and freaked the hell out, all talking a mile a minute as we each quickly confirmed we had all seen the same sequence of events occur right before our eyes, under direct light. I had goosebumps and my eyes were welling up with tears because it gave me an urge to cry. I was just so tripped out about what I just saw. We all retold the story one by one, over and over again, all the way to the airport, and also continued to recount the experience until we got to our destination. We are all friends to this day, and we still talk about this event often. I think about that day any time I pass that intersection and intently watch any pedestrian I happen to see there. It is an experience I will never forget, and what ultimately led me down the Matrix rabbit hole. A simulation glitch is the only explanation for what occurred to us. It perplexes me to this day. Case file number 1689, written by Scumbag Stacy's Ex. The forest chill with a doppelganger thrill. There's a place near me that has a nice flat 4-mile walk into a big lake, with a couple of lean-tos and a tent site on the shore of the lake. I go there half a dozen times a year or so. Each lean-to is about 300 yards apart, and the tent site is about 300 yards past the second lean-to. Each lean-to and the tent site has an outhouse, privy we call them, about 50 yards behind it, further from the lake. By the way, a lean-to is like a small shelter provided for free. This is state land, and it's very remote, and all first come first serve. I got to the trailhead about 4:30 last night, and there were no other cars. It was raining buckets. I don't care. I enjoy laying in my hammock in the rain. This was perfect for me since I knew my tent site would be open. I prefer sleeping in a hammock to the hard floor of a lean-to. After dinner and listening to the loons, I had a restful sleep. Woke up once at 3:30 or so to pee, slept for a few more hours. Woke up to the sound of heavy rain again, mixed with loon calls. I ate my breakfast and drank my coffee under my tarp while sitting in my hammock. I started breaking down camp and packing my pack. And as I was taking down my tarp, I got the sudden urge for my morning constitution. I'm stuffing my tarp into my pack and I look toward the trail that goes to the privy and I see a guy, dressed in the same color clothes as me, gray rain pants and olive raincoat, turn off the main trail and start walking away from me towards my privy. Damn it, I need to do that. Why is this guy using my privy? I really don't want to start hiking back because walking usually loosens things up more, and I don't want to crap my pants. So I'm just standing there in the freaking rain. And I had just put my tarp away. All I could think of was someone came into one of the lean-tos late last night. Maybe his buddy was using that privy, so he had to use mine. Frick. So I'm standing there a full 15 minutes, just staring at the trail to the privy, waiting for the guy to come out so I can go. Getting dumped on with rain the entire time. Finally, I'm like, frick this, maybe I missed him come out. I walk through the woods towards the privy and go in. There is nobody there, and there is no evidence of any recent use. The pit inside is not very deep, and you can see old deposits, but nothing fresh. Well, I had to go, so I made a fresh deposit. It only took me a minute or so. I hiked out past the two lean-tos, and both were completely empty. Nothing to indicate anyone was there. Hiked out in about an hour back to the parking lot, and my car was still the only one there. When I think back on it, I never made out a face on the guy. I thought it was weird he had the exact same raincoat and rain pants as me. Mine were a mixed set from two different manufacturers. Most people with rain pants have a matching jacket. As I hiked out, I became more and more convinced that I watched myself walk to the privy, then stood there like an idiot for 15 minutes in the rain. I know I didn't just imagine it. I was low-key kind of mad that this guy was using the privy at my tent site, instead of the one at his own lean-to. Hey, would you like 1 week of early access to my weekly and monthly compilations? If so, you can join the channel or over on Patreon. Check it out. Case file number 1690, written by Narrow Walrus, 7926. A plane in the sky, frozen, oh my. I had an early morning meeting at work last week. So my husband and I left early that day for him to drop me off. It was so early, it was just us and two other cars on the road. We live a couple miles from an international airport and see planes coming and going all the time. We stopped at a red light and saw a full-size passenger jet coming in to land, and it even had the big brand name on the side of it. I'm not going to say which airline it was because I feel weird sharing this in general. It was flying towards the airport to land, but it was flying really oddly. It looked like it was too low to make it to the airport for one, and for two, the way it was moving was just weird. It was gliding and kind of bouncing, and my immediate thought was, is that a plane or a balloon? I thought I was crazy, until I heard my husband, from the driver's seat, go, is that a balloon? And we both kept watching it, and decided there was no way someone had a life-size replica balloon of a Boeing of a specific airline, flying that high in the sky near a large airport. The light turns green, the plane was heading towards us, but when we got the green, we started heading towards it, and we realized we were the ones getting closer. We ended up driving parallel to it, and we realized the plane wasn't moving, like at all anymore. It's like it was frozen in mid-air. There's sometimes an optical illusion with planes, where if you get lined up correctly with one, and are going at a certain speed, it can make the plane look like it's still. You can Google it. I forgot the name of the illusion. We decided that had to be what was happening. We rolled our windows down to get a better look, and then we realized there's no way the plane was moving, because it was dead quiet outside. Those jets, we see them all the time, and they are loud. This one wasn't making any noise at all, and not only was it not making noise, neither was anything else. The birds stopped chirping, the wind stopped. We rolled our windows back up, and I turned to my husband and was like, I don't like this. There's no way we saw what we just saw. And he agreed that there had to be an explanation. I turned around again to get a second look, and the whole plane was gone. While it is a plane, it could have taken off out of view, but silently, and in maybe a 3-second time span? This happened last week. We haven't talked about it since, but this morning I was like, can we talk about the plane thing? Like, what was that? My husband said it made him so uncomfortable, he's been trying to forget about it entirely. I'm fascinated. I have no idea what happened or what we saw. But there has to be an explanation, right? Where did all those people go? We've tried Googling and I found nothing. I almost want to reach out on social media and see if I can find the people who were in those other two cars. But even just telling the story makes me feel like I'm crazy. Like it's one of those stories that if someone told me about it, I honestly probably wouldn't believe them. But it happened right in front of me and I know what I saw. I'm just glad my husband saw it too. Case file number 1691. Written by OKBadger1204, The Boot Puzzle with a Coin to Unravel. Had a coin fall into my boot from a place I visited 10 years ago. I'm trying to make sense of what happened to me this morning while I was at work. I know it can't just be a coincidence. Both of those puns were intended because I use humor to cope with situations. While at work this morning, I was recycling some metal for the company I work for. I was taking lamps from the table to the recycling bin, as the metal is heavy, so I can carry one at a time. I had already been doing this for about a half an hour when I felt like something fell into my boot. It's not an uncommon occurrence of things falling into my boots considering I don't tie them, and my jeans usually rest inside my boots. Like John Bender in The Breakfast Club. I feel it slide down my ankle and rest at the bottom of my boot and jiggle around while I finish making my lap. After tossing the metal in the bin, I take my boot off and shake out the debris that I felt fall in. As it falls in the dirt, I see that it is a coin about the size of a nickel or a quarter. I think to myself that it's strange because I didn't have any change on me that day, as I haven't used cash in a few weeks. I pick up the coin and I realize that it's neither a nickel or a quarter. It's a 20-cent coin from Bank Negara, Malaysia. My mind kind of froze when I picked it up. What in the actual hell? Why, how, when, what? I live in the US and visited this place probably 10 years ago, almost to this day. I had a weekend port visit there when I was in the Navy on deployment. I did keep a couple of coins from the places I visited, because it was just change that was left over from the trip. But that was 10 years ago. Plus, all of my change I collected from them is in my storage unit, and haven't dealt with it in years. I'm so baffled about what happened that now I can't even focus at work. I need some kind of opinion or outside perspective that I can't think of as to what just happened. The boots I wear are military-like, but not the same pair from them. I bought them about 4 years ago. Case file number 1692, written by Spetsy 55. Dr. Dan, the Plague Man. My son brought home the plague from school, and after 3 weeks of vomiting, I went to the doctor. I'm in Australia, so it's not as expensive here. Because it was an emergency appointment, I did not have the possibility to pick my doctor, so the doctor I was seeing for the day was Dr. Dan. I walk in. Yes, I'm sick, but I also drove to this appointment and had been at work earlier in the day, so I'm not on death's door. And there sits a young white Australian man who did an absolutely excellent job, and off I went home, with a bunch of antibiotics. When I get home, my husband has also succumbed to the plague, and I highly recommend Dr. Dan. I tell my husband all about Dr. Dan, and the next day, he makes an appointment and goes. Imagine my surprise when my husband came back with a bunch of antibiotics and a story to tell. He then proceeds to tell me that while Dr. Dan is indeed fantastic, he is not white, he is not young, he's middle-aged, and he is not Australian. In fact, he is of Indian descent. Guys, I'm telling you, I would have gone to court and testified under oath that Dr. Dan was a young, white Australian guy. I even looked on their website at the doctors that are available. They have a picture of each doctor on their website, and there was Dr. Dan, a man of Indian descent, middle-aged, and with a darker complexion. I have never hallucinated in my life, and although I was sick, I wasn't that sick, so I have no explanation. That is the one and only thing of its kind to ever happen to me. All I know is Dr. Dan was awesome and had me back up and running within 3 days. I also asked reception if there was a student doctor or a fill-in doctor at the time, and they said no. It was only ever Dr. Dan. Something else I remembered that I will prove it was the same doctor as my husband and I saw was that when my husband went in, he said to the doctor, "My wife was in yesterday and she was given antibiotics. I'm feeling sick with the same thing I imagine, so I'll need them too." To which Dr. Dan said to my husband, "Yes, I remember your wife. She was quite sick." So that kind of proves it was the same guy. At least to me it does. Okay, so I also have looked on my antibiotics package and the same with my husband's, and both were prescribed by Dr. Dan. I have also looked at my Medicare history, and it shows both my husband and I claim history. We are on the same card. The latest two were both for an appointment with Dr. Dan. Both of these things prove it was the same person. Case file number 1693. Written by Character Educator 96. Gazebo gone? It's a backyard phenomenon. This must have happened when I was 16 or 17 years old. I just asked my old friend about it the other day to confirm whether I was crazy or not, and if I'm remembering things incorrectly. She confirmed everything. One day, I was at my friend's house, typical detached home in southern Ontario. Each backyard had fences as the homes were surrounded by each other. My friend had a huge, fully set up gazebo in our backyard. It was set up properly and had been there for quite some time with no issues. We were in the basement one spring or summer afternoon Weather was sunny, warm, normal, and I heard a loud bang come from upstairs. Naturally, we ran up and asked her mom what the noise was, to which she replied that she wasn't sure. Eventually, we all ended up looking out the upstairs window in her mom's bedroom, which allowed us to see both her and her next door neighbor's backyard, to the left. We were in shock. Her humongous, full-size gazebo had somehow levitated and landed perfectly straight and normal in her neighbor's backyard. It makes no sense. I googled that residential fences in my area are 6 to 8 feet tall. It wasn't a small item like an umbrella that could just pick up in the wind and land. Like, even if it somehow fully levitated, it shouldn't have landed in perfect condition. No one remembers it even being remotely windy that day. This was freaking weird. My friend and I are still shaken about it to this day and don't understand it one bit. Crap could have been in the news for sure. Case file number 1694, written by It's Garden Time, Nerd. When lost and found, my jaw hit the ground. In summer 2021, I bought a jewelry box at an estate sale. Since college, I'd been keeping my jewelry, hair stuff, etc. in one of those little plastic drawer sets you buy at Walmart, and it was time for an upgrade. I moved over the jewelry I wear most often, and left the rest in plastic drawers. Prior to all this, years ago, my high school boyfriend had bought me the very generous gift of a necklace and earring set from the Swarovski Museum while he was on a trip to Austria. A sparkling green crystal shell on a turtle-shaped silver pendant with matching round crystal studs. I was very disappointed to lose one of the earrings just a couple years later. I wore the remaining stud by itself a few times, opposite a small hoop. I tried to wear it in my cartilage piercing, but that was a no-go since the post was too thick and it hurt. I combed through those plastic drawers so many times over the years, just in case. After moving among a few states and even more residences, it was more of a habit than anything. I knew it wasn't there. Back to present-ish. On some certain day in early 2022, after several months' use of the jewelry box, I found myself unenticed by its contents, and turned to the plastic drawers to see if I could find any more interesting earrings. A green crystal stud caught my eye in the drawer, and I thought to myself, hang on, didn't I just see this in the jewelry box? Didn't I? I picked up the earring, turned around, and looked back in the jewelry box. Lo and behold, there was the green earring, sitting in the box, its twin in my hand. There were two of them. This was impossible, and yet two. I put them right in, eyes wide, and went to work. That night I was hesitant to take them off, worried that one might disappear while I slept. When I awoke, both remained on my bedside table, and I'm very pleased to report that they have stayed together ever since. Case file number 1695, written by Blatino13, Reality Blip, and a Headphone Trip. This is the most crazy experience I've ever felt, and it's so unbelievable I experienced this phenomena this intense. Basically, I ordered some Apple headphones on April 25th, 2023 from Walmart Express. I lost my headphones the day prior. Usually a bad habit, I chew on my wired headphones because it has a plastic rubbery piece that connects the left and right wire so they don't go flying everywhere. I usually listen to my music and chew away on the rubber. It's truly a delicacy. When I got my headphones delivered, I was delighted by how fast Walmart Express ships, but I was soon disappointed because they had no chewy piece to chew on. I investigated the headphones very thoroughly. There was no plastic piece on these Apple headphones in particular to stop the left and right wires from flying all over. This headphone I received had that feature built into the wires, if that makes sense. Like there were slots in the actual wires that connected them to each other. Regardless of this design, I figured Apple made a newer generation of headphones, or I had just an ancient version. So throughout the day, I'm using my brand new headphones, and then towards the night, my heart dropped. It was a morbid feeling, because I had realized that in that moment, I was unconsciously chewing on my headphones the same way I chewed on my old ones. The chewy piece was there now. I swear to God, I checked the headphones up and down. There was no plastic piece on these. Now I'm questioning reality. I can swear on my life that the headphones were built differently just hours prior. Now I have an entire different but similar set of headphones. What is really going on, y'all? I'm a pretty rational person, so this is very different for me to accept. But I know for a fact that it happened, and is now forcing me to believe in parallel realities, or at least some type of simulation that we're inside of. Or if a human affair like CERN is interfering with our reality, and I'm noticing it, I can't tell. I'm even having lucid telekinetic dreams lately. I'm obsessed with this now because I feel like I witnessed something that no one else ever has. This feels so weird, I don't know what's real anymore. I can't be the only one experiencing these subtle changes lately and recognizing them in the Matrix, am I? You're not. Case file number 1696, written by Demona Drash, Enigma revealed in the ring that time concealed. A few years ago, I found a beautiful tanzanite and diamond ring on sale at a jewelry shop. I was able to do a layaway plan over 4 months and finally brought it home. It's the most expensive piece of jewelry I've ever owned, and I love this ring. At the time, the ring fit perfectly. However, about a year ago, I needed to resize it as I'd put on weight. I put it back in its box and bag, took it to my car, and placed it in the glove compartment while I ran some other errands. I ended up having to go home before I made it to the jewelry shop, so I left the ring in the car, parked in a garage, and planned to take it in next time I was out. 2 days later, I pulled up at the jewelry store, and when I went to get out the ring out of the glove compartment, it wasn't there. I tore the car up looking for it. It's nowhere. I go home and check everywhere just to be sure, but the ring is gone. The only thing I can think of is that someone got into my car during my errands and took it. Over the last year, I've cleaned and vacuumed my car several times, always hoping I would somehow find the ring. About 3 months ago, I even bought a smaller, cheaper version I found, just because it was tanzanite. But it was not as nice as the original ring. 4 days ago, I hopped in my car and guess what is sitting on the passenger floorboard? The bag with my ring, packed up and ready for the jeweler, with the original receipt and everything. I have absolutely no idea where this ring could have been for the last year. No clue how it could have been possible to miss it in the meantime. I tore this car apart multiple times looking for it, cleaning. It's like it somehow just moved forward in time. No one else drives my car. Case file number 1697, written by Dream Girl. We were locked outside while our keys took a ride. This happened around 5 years ago, on my niece's first birthday. My mom, my sister, my other niece, let's call her M, and I were set to go to the party. We all left the house at 5 p.m., locking both the house and the gate from the outside. The gate's lock is one of those that won't release the key until it's securely locked. Our house gate is unusually tall, floor to ceiling, so nothing can be passed over it. The distance from the gate to the house's main door is about 30 meters. Now here's the strange part. When we returned home, we needed to unlock the gate to park the car inside. I had the house and gate keys on a single key ring, which also included all the keys to the doors inside the house. Losing them would be a disaster. I distinctly remember putting the keys in my purse because their weight was noticeable. However, no matter how hard I searched, I couldn't find the keys. We scoured the car, thinking they might have fallen inside, but still found nothing. We concluded that they might have been lost at the party venue, so my sister and her husband went back to search for them, as those keys were crucial. Meanwhile, my mom, Em, and I stayed outside the house, still trying to locate the keys. It was past 9 p.m., and it was dark inside the house and beyond the gate. I usually carry a small flashlight in my purse, which Em borrowed to peer through the gate's grills. The gaps were tiny, not even wide enough for a child's finger. Em noticed a glint near the house's main door. We both focused on it with the flashlight and my phone's light, and to our surprise, it was the keys we had been searching for. We showed them to my mom, who initially thought I must have dropped them earlier. However, she quickly realized this was impossible, since the key must be removed from the lock only after securing the gate. When my sister and her husband returned, having found no keys at the venue, we showed them the keys inside the gate. They were as baffled as we were. Ultimately, we had to break the gate's lock to get inside the house and retrieve the keys from about 30 meters away. Case file number 1698, written by Erwixna, Wedding Pics and Universe Tricks. So 3 weeks ago, I went to a wedding with my boyfriend and his friends. There was one of those photo booths there, and we all took some photos. There were 8 strips of photos, 2 copies of 4. I ended up taking all the copies home, as he had asked me to, and we agreed that I'd give them to him when I saw him again. The following week, I went over to his house. Since I'm one of those people that packed the night before, I put the photos in my bag so I wouldn't forget them. One of the copies had actually gotten oil on them from some food, so I made sure to give them the nice ones and pack them quickly so nothing else would get on them. I was kinda talking out loud, so my flatmate, who did not attend the wedding but also knows him and saw the photos, knew what I was doing. The next day I saw my boyfriend. I took the photos out of my bag before I did anything else. I put them on his bed and sat down after that, and he smiled at me in this really specific way, which is why I remember it really vividly. He was happy to get them, and we went on about our day. 2 days ago, I was actually thinking about those photos, because I realized I wasn't sure where to put my copies. Then they were just right next to me. I counted my photos and realized I had an extra. 5, not 4. And I was confused because I had thought I had given him all 4, but maybe I had forgotten to give him the 1. Well, today, 3 weeks later, he told me that I never gave him the photos. Like he literally just told me right before I'm starting to type this. He said it so casually, just asked me when he'd get them. Well, here I am, absolutely confused because I remember giving him the photos. I remember the memory exactly as I described it here. Sure enough, I look over, and all 8 copies are right next to me. I kinda just froze and asked my flatmate about the day I gave him the photos. She tells me that yes, I did give them, that she remembers me packing them, that when I came home, I'd even told her that he'd been happy when he got them. But here they are in front of me, all 8 copies, and apparently I never gave them? Now I'm just really confused. My flatmate and I are the only ones who remember the fact that I gave them. And before anyone asks, no, this isn't a prank of some kind. My flatmate and boyfriend are not those types of people. And they don't talk much except for when he visits me. He's not gaslighting me about the fact that I didn't give them, because all the photos are literally on my bed as I type. He genuinely doesn't remember that happening because here it never happened. So I took a break from writing this for a bit, to do other things. Turns out I have 9 photos now. One of the photos doesn't have a copy. In my memory it did. But that would mean that I had 10 photos at some point, so now I'm extra confused. Case file number 1699, written by no audience, 6195. Dinner's done, but the night has just begun. It was a school night, and our family had just had dinner. Rice-a-roni, meatloaf, and green beans. I hated it. Anyway, about an hour or so passes, and I head upstairs to bed. Now, to get upstairs, we have 2 stairways. One leads to the kitchen, the other is a living room, which then has the staircase to the bedrooms. I take this staircase leading from the foyer to the living room. As I head up the staircase, I see my little brother, around 5 at the time, run from his room to the bathroom, both located on each side of the top of the staircase leading up from the living room. I say out loud, "Man, you better get to bed before you get in trouble." When suddenly, my little brother comes upstairs from the staircase from the foyer to the kitchen, a floor beneath me, and then passes me and says, "Good night." Then proceeds to go upstairs and then go to his room and close the door. I stand there frozen. If my brother was downstairs, then who did I see that ran from his room to the bathroom? Why did I think it was my brother? Or maybe I'm overthinking it, and my brother just has super speed. All jokes aside, I was so freaked out I ran upstairs past the bathroom, without looking to see what could have been in there, and went into my room and closed the door. I waited that whole night for a face. It never came. But this night stuck with me for a while. Any theories on what it could have been? Case also file 1688. Vanished in sight through a flickering night. I think the flickering effect is what we might call a phase change. When matter or energy changes phases, usually matter, there's a process involved. It doesn't happen to everything all at once. You know, when you boil water, it doesn't all boil away instantly. Well, unless you have insane levels of heat. But I think a similar effect applies here. I think if you're crossing over to a different universe, perhaps, even in multiverse sight, it doesn't happen instantaneously. The process takes a bit of time, especially if it involves your physical corporeal body, not just your soul. So I think you had a very, very rare glimpse at this process actually happening in real time. And it was a mega quack standard with plenty of witnesses. So that's good. No need to feel crazy. This is real. It's reality. Reality's freaking weird. Case also file 1689. The Forest Chill with the Doppelgänger Thrill. So this sounds like an incredibly peaceful habit to have. A very tranquil place to visit. I need to go hiking again. It's been too long. I mean, I hike in a local park, but it's not the same. That is very tended to. Now, in effect, I don't believe this was a doppelganger, because you didn't really feel or describe terrifying vibes, just unusual. I think you saw yourself as a ripple through time, an echo, if you will. You did see yourself as you were going to be in a few minutes, but you're only able to see yourself in the localized area, the bubble, if you will, of space-time distortion. And this did not translate into the privy. because you saw no additional deposits, which is a funny way to say what we all know it means, but yes. No additional deposits because you hadn't made it yet. You were seeing what was going to happen. You saw what has the highest probability to occur. Now, in very short time frames, it's not too difficult to predict the future, at least at the macro level. At the quantum level, forget it, impossible. There is no hidden information to predict. The universe literally materializes everything at the fundamental level in real time. There is no plan, if you will. No future set in stone. Unless we're talking about replay theory, which is a different thing entirely. Won't go in the weeds on that one, but in this case I think it was just seeing a very probable future in a localized area right in front of you. Very interesting, but nothing to fear. Now time for the quote of the day. Prot. The universe will expand, then it will collapse back on itself, then expand again. It will repeat this process forever. What you don't know is that when the universe expands again, everything will be as it is now. Whatever mistakes you make this time around, you will live through on your next pass. Every mistake you make, you will live through again and again forever. So my advice to you is to get it right this time around, because this time is all you have. This is a technical way to describe fate, that the universe is caught in this repeating time loop, the universe itself being constructed of time, but as we understand a time loop, it is effectively that. The universe expands, everything happens, and then it recontracts, and boom, Big Bang again, and on and on. This could be true. Personally, I think because of quantum mechanics, even if this theory is true, the Big Crunch as they call it, that doesn't mean that we will repeat exactly as we did this time. In fact, even though we're starting from the same parameters, things could be entirely different, because nothing is solidified at the fundamental level. Now maybe this only impacts our free will. So maybe everything happens exactly the same way up until the point where sentient life with free will emerges. And then things can change. Maybe a whole new set of souls come into play, a different character set. Interesting way to think about it. But yes, if we are stuck in this continual loop, you better hope you made the best decisions and you got the best luck. Because for a lot of people, an infinite loop of horror is not fair. So I don't think it's that. But it's an interesting thought experiment nevertheless. And this was from the movie K-Pax, which is a fantastic, underrated movie. Classic. Go watch it. Question surface 1690. A plane in the sky? Frozen. Oh my. So yes, it's true. There's a very real effect, and what you described is called the parallax effect. You can also see this with birds, various birds that can sort of hover in one spot. Now they are actually hovering, but it requires a certain amount of wind as well. And I don't think you can actually hover with a plane. It's just the appearance of it, the fake illusion. But in this case, no, because silence is the key. If you were that close to a plane, and they were actually flying in air, unless their engines burned out, and they weren't on at all, but I don't think that's the case. Given every detail you mention, my guess is nothing to do with the parallax effect, everything to do with a space-time portal, a ripple in time and space connecting to a different universe, and you were simply seeing in that universe, or ahead in time in this universe. So maybe the plane was going to be there, but you were seeing a sort of snapshot in time or in the multiverse spectrum. Hard to say which one, but my gut is it's just multiverse sight, but usually those are limited to very small areas. So this occupying the entire volume of a plane is very unusual. And I do think sometimes these space-time portals can appear and consume an entire plane, and that is how sometimes planes vanish entirely. Not necessarily related to the Bermuda Triangle, but perhaps more prone there, for ships as well. Question surface 1691. The boot puzzle with a coin to unravel. It's funny because every single glitch now, or almost every single one, can be reduced or involve space-time portals, or dead pockets of space-time that we can still see through and interact with. But in this case, it seems like objects go out of phase, but they still bind to us. They're still tethered to us. It isn't just that light goes right through them. It's that you can't physically touch it anymore. But the object is still, maybe just in code, in information, bound to us, and then eventually reemerges. What the catalyst for that is, I have no clue. Is it really some dude in the real world pushing a button, like it phase out, phase back in? It seems so weird because these objects, what does it matter for these objects? Is it maybe the universe, the program corrupting, and then eventually someone notices and fixes it. But sometimes the gap in time is so large, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I mean, explaining why this happens is sort of easy, but explaining the motive behind it, because it seems like a will is involved, it can't be random. I don't know. I am stumped on that part. Now time for the quote of the day. Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson, danger! From another classic sci-fi movie, Lost in Space. There is a Netflix adaptation, which I haven't seen. I should. I hear it's decent, but I'm talking about the movie back in the day. It was one of those movies that might not be great, but because I saw it as a kid, there's nostalgia involved, and I can't get over it. I always rewatch it here and there, and it always lands. The monkey is interesting. But I won't spoil anymore. Of course, they are lost in space, which I don't think that's a spoiler. It's kind of given the name of the movie, but go watch it. And danger, Will Robinson, danger. Case answer file 1692. Dr. Dan, the Plague Man. Yeah, quantum immortality indeed. The plague, so-called, claimed your life in the originating universe, which is very sad to think about. Every time I come back to that, in that universe, people just think you died. Your soul persists in this universe and many, many others. And so, yeah, in this universe, you did indeed see Dr. Dan, and he did save your life. But the Dr. Dan in this universe, which is a big difference, is of Indian descent, not Australian. So that's a massive difference. So this universe, it might be very far away from your originating one. Maybe the plague, so-called, took you out in many, many universes up until this one. It explains a lot. But it is nevertheless bittersweet knowing so many yous are gone in those universes. It's just the mourning process for, everyone in those universes that loved you, and now you're gone. I can't get over that fact. I hope I've never died, but we probably all have. I wonder if there's anyone that goes through an entire lifetime and never dies once before old age claims them. Maybe, if someone is very sheltered. But it is so easy to die. So many things can kill you. Try to be safe as you can, to spare the emotional trauma from those who love you here. But of course, sometimes things happen and we can't control it, and it's not your fault at all, okay? I'm not blaming you in any way. But I'm just saying take the measures you can to try not to die. Even though we have apparently, a billion trillion cat lives. In some ways, that makes me want to be more risky. Go rock climbing and skydiving again. Not sure I mentioned that. I went skydiving when I was 19. Anyways, no tangents. I'm good. Next story. Case answer file 1693. Gazebo gone? It's a backyard phenomenon. So yeah, I couldn't see this happening, even if it was one of those gazebos that is mostly just like metal rods and cloth. But if it was a wooden gazebo, no chance at all. Even if it was one of the lighter gazebos, they're still 100 pounds, 200 pounds. You need a lot of wind to be able to lift it up, and then for it to land squarely as it did? No way. Maybe if there was a tornado in the area, but otherwise, this one I don't know. It can't be DOP, can it? It's almost like quantum tunneling through the fence. At the smallest level for nuclear fusion to happen, particles, usually electrons, can zip across very small areas, not travel through them at all, but just appear from one place to another. It's becoming an issue for CPU design as well. Because the transistor gates are so small, electrons can zip through and turn from a 0 to a 1 or 1 to 0, without that being the intent. But this only happens at the very, very tiniest of levels. So, to have this happen at the macro scale is unimaginable. But technically not impossible. If you wait long enough, anything can spawn from nothing. But it is so unlikely to happen that it shouldn't. DOP doesn't fit. Quantum immortality doesn't fit because everyone was surprised that it happened. Wonder how the neighbors reacted. I don't know. Very mystical gazebo indeed. Case answer file 1694. When lost and found, my jaw hit the ground. The turtles were reunited. Nice. But again, it comes back to DOP events where the object disappears, okay? They reappear even though the original owner is far away in a different location in space-time. Why do they reappear at all next to the person? If they disappeared and then reappeared in the originating spot, that would make a bit more sense. And you could say, yeah, that's just entirely random. But no. They are still tethered to you. They go out of phase. But the properties, the code is like imprinted on you, and no matter where you go, they'll reappear near to where you are eventually. So maybe one day, the 2 tennis balls I've lost will just drop on my head. And no matter where I am, if I go visit Japan, they could drop over there. Now time for the quote of the day. Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Our scars have the power to remind us that the past was real. It's almost like an Inception, where they have the spinny thing, whatever you call those, to remind them of if this is a dream or not. You have your token that comes with you. A scar is similar to that. It binds you to the past, so you know this already happened. It's not just a faulty memory. It's real. Now, I'm not saying Dr. Hannibal Lecter was a role model. Of course not. But it is interesting how the trials and tribulations of our lives, if they leave a mark, well, it's a postmark in history itself. It's something you can rely on to know what really happened, beyond just memory. Kind of trying to put a positive spin on a negative. Do you have any scars? I have a few, but nothing major. I just have like my middle finger is broken because when I was young, it got caught in a car door as it was slammed shut and broke apart. Never reset, but not a critical thing or anything. There's no pain, just the bone grew at an angle. Yep, that's it. Okay, so on to file 1695. Reality blip and headphone trip. How much power does our mind have in altering the properties of physical matter itself? At the fundamental level, one theory proposed is quantum field theory. The idea is, everything we know, energy and matter, is merely an excitation of various fields. There are 17 different fields. For instance, an electron is an excitation of the electron field. The field permeates all of space-time, and in any given area, you have this excitation, which is the particle itself. Now, these excitations contain tremendous quantities of energy, and to either extinguish the particle as we understand it, or to create a new one from nothing, requires or generates tremendous quantities of energy. But if you were simply to alter the properties of a molecule, of a macro-level object, maybe you could do that without necessarily needing much energy. If the total mass remains the same in terms of electrons, neutrons, and protons, well, in theory, it shouldn't really require much energy besides the momentum required to move objects around. Now there's chemistry, covalent bonds and other things that in chemistry still altering properties of an object would in technicality produce energy, so doing this should cause an explosion. But maybe there's a way that our minds are able to do it in beyond the physical limitations of chemistry. So maybe your own mind, just by thinking about it, created this. It could also be quantum immortality, but there's nothing in the story that would lead me to believe that you just suddenly died. That would be strange. So I think it's literally your mind morphing the composition of these headphone cords, and that's it. In theory, it should be possible-ish, maybe? That's as far as I can go on that one. Okay, so let's file 1696. Enigma revealed in the ring that time concealed. So is that part of it? These objects that disappear, they don't just phase out, they literally skip ahead in time to where they know we were going to be later on in the future. So they're not technically bound to us, they just appear where we are supposed to be. I guess this would require replay theory, so the future we experience now is set in stone because we already played it out. It would be very easy to take an object from the now and then place it wherever you are in the future. It's not so much traveling through space, it's just traveling through time. Of course, it doesn't explain why it happens, who is triggering it to happen. Are these just random errors? Blips in the excitations of quantum fields for no apparent reason? I don't know if that is ever going to be answerable. I hope so. Maybe there's a story one day that'll reveal beyond the curtain just a bit more, because it's a head-scratcher for now. Case notes for file 1697. We were locked outside, while our keys took a ride. So you leave your home, you lock the gate, has to be locked and the key removed for it to be locked, and then the keys are just gone and reappear inside the locked area. So, okay. Clearly they vanished. Was this another DOP event? Did some other force, an entity, a poltergeist, a ghost, steal them and just play this prank on you? It's not exactly that malicious, but it's also certainly not random. It could be DOP, but usually DOP, the object doesn't return that quickly. a minor DOP event. The only thing I can say for sure is that it's not random. Now time for the joke of the day. Why don't some couples go to the gym? Because some relationships don't work out. Though the irony of this quote is going to the gym and maintaining fit bodies for each other is probably one of the best ways to ensure the relationship lasts. Or, a component of that. Funny joke, but go to the gym. Or at least, go on hikes and do calisthenics. That's free and very good for you. Not just for the relationship. Case note for file 1698. Wedding pics and universe tricks. Yeah, I'm befuddled on this one too, because it can't be quantum immortality. If it was, you're in a different universe and you didn't give your pictures to your boyfriend in that universe, why would your roommate then remember you doing it and talking about it? Unless you died after that discussion happened, but before you gave it to him. Maybe in this universe you were going to, but just forgot. Sort of, but that doesn't explain why you have extra. In this universe you also have extra pictures that are just appearing randomly? It's almost like something was altering your memories and then also inserting a new picture in the mess. I don't see why anyone would do that, but maybe it is the universe glitching out, and there's no reason that a glitch couldn't involve our own memories. Maybe the glitches are happening in our heads too, which is much more disconcerting in my view. Case answer file 1699. Dinner's done, but the night has just begun. So most likely astral projection. Your brother, unbeknownst to him, was projecting his soul. Now, what would be funny is if the brother that ran up the stairs was actually the astral projection, and the brother that went in the bathroom was the real corporeal self, and you just were freaked out by the wrong one. There's nothing necessarily involved in this that requires you to be freaked out. The soul detaching from the body and materializing sort of corporeally doesn't involve any malice and often is just an accidental process. I think it's more of a fun event than something to fear. Oh, and also, rice-a-ronis are kind of mid-tier. Not my favorite thing, so I understand hating it. Now time for the joke of the day. A man sees a sign in front of a house. Talking dog for sale. He rings the bell, and the owner tells him the dog is in the backyard. The man goes into the backyard and asks the dog, "Can you talk?" The dog replies, "Yep, I sure can." Astonished, the man asks, "So what's your story?" The dog looks up and says, "Well, I discovered I could talk when I was young. I wanted to help the government, so I told the CIA. In no time, they had me traveling around the world, sitting in rooms with spies and world leaders, because no one would ever suspect a talking dog. I was able to gather information that no human could. I was a top agent for 8 years." The man is amazed and runs back to the owner, asking how much he wants for the dog. The owner says, $10. $10? Why on earth are you selling him for so cheap? Because he's a liar. He didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, he can still talk, but yeah, maybe don't buy a dog that is also a pathological liar. I could foresee some issues with that. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.